talk in my speech. I'm going to talk about. I'm going to introduce my team. My name is Abi. I will deliver you the principle why is national school should go fully digital. And my second speaker is Ayu, will talk in principle why is go national school going fully digital is exactly justifiable. And lastly, my third speaker Sophia will conclude what have been spoken and do several responses to the opponent, right? But why is but why is school should be the first thing we have to start the digital with, under three reasons, right? Because number one, I believe that school is is like a productive, is the age productive of people, where the student can easily learn and fast learning, right? Because and that age, for example, because on that age, for example, the people like from the earlier age can productive productively learn, right? Because they are still focused on their education. So that's why like applying fully digital in school is actually is actually easy for them to get the learning itself. And second reason why should school as the first, right? School is the place where the people can focus on the subject. What does that mean? Those people who go to school basically just basically are just sent to study by the parent, and it will like it will open the possibilities for the student to focus on the learning itself. And and what kind of what do we mean by saying like fully digitals means it fully digital means that the school is going to conduct or implement the school system fully digital. It means they are going to put the data based on digital. What does it mean? It's going to we are going to lose the function of conventional school, where the data of student, for example, the data of funding are still put on the paper, which is easy to be lost, right? So that's why fully digital means here we're going to put the data, we're going to apply full technology or digital facilities on the school, like Wi-Fi, school projector, and it will erase the function of conventional school, where everything is very hard to do without the technology itself, right? But notice that what kind of education or even outfit we want to achieve through the education, through the schools, uh, through the school to the fully digital school itself, right? The new model of education we want to apply by the digital itself, we're going to create education which relates with the change of technology, with the demand of time. For example, like Google right now do not obligate you to graduate from university first to work in there, but you need to be we need to be like we need to be and able in the technology itself, right? So that's why school fully digital here is going to create like uh, going to create more relatable, compatible and effective human resources through the school itself, right? Like they're going to create like education output that is sophisticated and which is compatible, right? But why should we go with the national schools as the first to begin with, right? Because in principle the national school is getting more fund from the government. So that's why it is possible for them to firstly implement the digital education itself, right? Because you know because uh, you know the because the you know the the national school is getting more fund from the government. So that's why it is good, and uh, it is implementable to do at school itself, right? But after that, because we think that it have to be, it has to be implemented in the private school as well, but we have to start it from the national school, and step by step process it will go to the private school itself, right? So that's why by the reason of, by the reason of above, I think that I probably to propose.
The first speaker of government team spent time 7 minutes 20 seconds. Now let's invite our first speaker from the opposition team, Ms. Azahra. Time is yours.
Am I audible?
Yes.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, let's analyze the two main idea of the government, right? So first, they talk about how they want to compete with other countries, how they want to improve the technology, and how they also want their peoples in order to aware with technology, right? But first of all, they never actually give us any parameter until which range they actually want to compete, until which extent they want to compete. They picture us the country, which is Indonesia itself, who's obviously a developing country with different starting point, which is really different with developed countries, and trying to make it in the same stage with those countries is really unrealistic, because in the first place we already have a different starting point and technology, right? And also they don't really give us any explanation about what kind of national school they actually mean here. If they mean that private school in cities, then it means that it's not national school, because national schools not only involve schools in the cities, but also involve schools in the villages and etc. Right? And also they talk something about how the government is already provide funding and etc. If it's true, then why there are still lots of poor people in Indonesia who don't have access of education and etc. Which is really our issue as the government, as the opposition itself. So here's the opposition. We believe that conventional system is still contribute in accessibility and progressivity for all of the students. We want a fair and progressive education to our society. We believe that school system should not be fully digital, and we want to stick with the status quo, but keep still applying conventional system, which is a face-to-face in our education system. For example, like sticking to the status quo right now, where school, aside from this, they do conventional system, they can sometimes do a digital system, which is a mixed or a contribution or that involve lots of contribution of the students, right? So we need to know that the goal of education is how to make sure that their students will have the capability in this competitive capitalism world, how the students will have the able to compete to get a job fill and reputation in the future or in the after school. So schools should make sure that their students are motivated and fully maximized in learning new skills and knowledge that being given by the teachers, right? That is the reason why school exists in the first place, in how they can make their people in order to compete and also get a job fill to fulfill their life and continue their daily life. So here I'm going to talk about 3 things. First, I'm going to talk about why it's not urgent to replace conventional system with digital system. Second, why it's justified to keep using conventional system. And thirdly, how we're going to reach our goal in the end of the day. So first, let's talk about why it's justified. We know that digital learning exists because how the government is want to bring a better technology, right? But our problem is that how this digital is not really accessible in all layers of region and also society. We talk about accessibility because digital involves technology, and although technology is actually common in cities, but it's really unlikely in village. Not all people have the access to a proper technology. There are lots of people have low income and money, because we know that the digital devices cost lots of money and more expensive than school books and etc. So not all people can access it in the first place. This is the mostly happening in developing countries of Indonesia and etc., where there are a huge income gap between people in the cities and also in the village. Not just about income, but also let's talk about connection, like how connection range in village is not as proper as what happening in city, and it's really bad for the accessibility for the student itself. Even in some cities, poor people or middle income people are still exist, and it will be a double burden for them to pay more by using digital system, because it costs a huge and more expensive facilities, right? I mean, these people, they're already struggling to pay for their child's school in the first place, to about how they struggling to put their children through the certain school, but then they need to have a more burden by how they need to add more facilities that not all people can actually access that. because the context is that we're talking about national school, which means school all across the country, and the government never give us any parameter about what kind of national school they actually mean. And by giving a system without any measurement of the regional and people's capabilities is not a wise decision as the government, because as the government itself, why we give an education in the first place is because we want to prioritize on providing education to make sure that it's actually acceptable and also being received fairly with all layers of the people. And that's why we think that conventional is really more advantageous in this case. Why? Because in conventional, there is no such a huge or more expensive facilities like what digital actually required. And also not just accessibility, but also let's talk about progressivity. Here, we're not going to say that digital system is bad for progressivity, but we are trying to think about the solution of progressivity that will cater all layers of society, not just in economic, but also based on the students' characterization. There are two types of students, ladies and gentlemen. First, there are students who are educated, not educated. Students have different intelligence, different characteristics, and etc. And not all students have the same ability to receive new information, right? There are students who are quick to receive information, but there are also students who have a low ability to receive information. So it actually depends on how the teacher's learning. And we believe that with digital learning, it's actually affect the teacher's teaching style and also their teacher's quality. Why? Because we know that not all teachers also adjusted and also getting used with how digital learning works. Not all teachers also have the same amount of quota in order to do one Zoom, and also not all teachers have the same ability to control all students who they don't even see their face because they do learning in a longer range, right? And also we think that in digital learning, there is no something called emotional intelligence or emotional connection. We think that emotional connection in a learning style is really important, which we find that in conventional system. In conventional system, teachers gonna know how their students' capabilities. They will able to measure what kind of students in their class, what is the flaws of their students, so they can actually fix and measure and try to adjust her or his learning style to make the students understand, right? Because how the teachers will able to teach the student if they don't even know what kind of thing that their students actually need, what kind of thing that their students actually need to understand, and what kind of flaw that they actually need to fix. For example, like in Zoom mini call or in Zoom studies, the teacher, they cannot actually see their student faces. They cannot actually ask the student about personal problem, like which one you don't understand, which one you want to fix, about which one you want me to keep to rewind my learning again, and etc., which is really bad for the students itself. And also we think that emotional connection is also going to be able to make the students more motivated in school, because the existence of teacher is not only as someone who's gonna teach the student, but also someone who's gonna motivate them in order to be better, right? And how it's gonna reach the goal in the end of the day
Time for the first speaker is up.
This kind of gonna bring. Thank you.
First speaker of the opposition, spend time 7 minutes 25 seconds. Now let's invite the second speaker of the government, Ms. Ayu.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Have a connection problem? Is it only me or?
You may turn off your camera if there's connection problem.
Hello, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Judges, I think opposition team get confused in this debate, because first they thought that when we go fully digital, it will be changed in one day. No, even in developed country, they they need, like, they took years to be fully digital and successful in their education system, in their education system, right? So we don't say that we will be successful, learn fully digital when we are going to go fully digital in one day, right? It takes time, it takes year by year. And answering the question from opposition team that national schools means the schools that own, control, and managed by the government. But here's in this debate, we say that national school that go fully digital, it's only possible in city, right? Because we say that it's impossible for us to go fully digital in village itself, right? It's unfair if you credit the point from the opposition team by them saying that it's like impossible for the village student to go fully digital. Yes, we as the government, we're going to go fully digital for the national school in city, for example. Because of what? Because if the opposition saying that they would like to stick in status quo, judges, we say that if the opposition team want to stick in status quo, they will stick in the 90s education system, which Indonesian government never successful to develop our education system, right? So we need a new action, a new era, new system that could develop our education system. If you want to stick in yours, in their server house, you will never be developed in your education system itself, because we're going to slowly but sure to go fully digital. For example, in this year we're going to fully digital in Jakarta, for example, or in Java Island, and then in next year we're going to full digital in a Bali or Lombok Island, for example. It's impossible for us to change the education system in one day. We need more time, right? So you should not credit the point of the opposition team itself. Judges, what is the benefit if we go fully digital for national school in city, for example? First of all, we will decrease the number of people that using paper. Can you imagine that when you decrease? Can you imagine that you can save your environment? You can save your environment by fully digital, because people will less using the paper itself, right? Go fully digital means that students should not should not use paper or pen anymore. All the lesson that they could search on the school site, for example, or even the teacher that could upload the lesson through their school site, for example. So we say that this system even could give the benefit for our environment, for our next generation. So we don't have to cut off our trees. For example, because we are fully vegan, we're using electronic device for learning system. So that's why we don't have to worry about the environment problem and etc. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, we say that technology backward will not be continuously happen in the future, because at the very first beginning we teach them how to operate the electric device, right? Because school is one of the place that really important for our next generation. If you teach the young kids to operate the electronic device itself, at the end of the day we don't have to worry about the technologically backward as we face right now, right? Because at the very first beginning, in a long time ago, our country are failed to manage our education system, because they don't teach their student how to operate electronic device, how to operate PC, and etc. So we don't want this kind of things happen continuously. So we need an action. At least we need at least we do something for our future. At least we do something to change our education system, rather than opposition team that only stick in status quo, which they don't do nothing. They still want our country become developing country. There is no any action from the opposition team itself, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, as my first speaker already stated, we are facing modern era, which is force us to be more using electronic device than a conventional one. So why we have to follow an old regulation if you have those chance or opportunity to using this kind of electronic device, even to teach our young generation to be ready for the point for zero a point for zero industry, right? We say that it is also related to the pandemic COVID-19, right? Because of the pandemic COVID-19 and the development of technology, of technology make it possible for us to study from home, right? I think that the students already understand how to use Zoom, how to use Discord, and etc. Right? They are ready to be go fully digital because they already through 1 year online classes, which they already understand how to search something. Most smarter and clever teacher is internet and Google itself. So we say that teacher in our seventh house, they don't have to explain as they did before, right? So they just send the lesson through the school site, for example, through school website, for example. So of the house, students should be more creative, should be more active to search the information and etc. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we say that national school is one of the priority of our government, right? So we have to put the national school first, right? They are responsible for our next generation. We have to do something that really important for our next generation, for our next generation, that they will be ready at the end of the day to facing the new era, which you only using electronic device rather than continuously using a paper or pen or conventional stuff, right? So if you stick in this sort of house, you will be a fail at the end of the day, because everyone like developed country at the very first beginning, at the very first beginning.
Thank you. Second speaker of the government team, spend time 7 minutes 27 seconds. Now let's invite the second speaker of the opposition, by Naura. Time is yours.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Beginning my speech in 3, 2, 1. The things that the government side failed to acknowledge from the very beginning, that the technology is already exists in the very first place, right? Go for fully digital school is not the good, it's not a direct good change for you as a developing country for apply this kind of policy itself, ladies and gentlemen. The status quo of developing country in the developing country is basically majority of them are poor people, which is they don't have a same capacity to gain the same privilege for every layer of people itself, ladies and gentlemen. So the government side of the house don't give us any counterbalance on how we're gonna respond to these cases itself, ladies and gentlemen. They bring, and also second of all, they bring the idea that it will be hamper the developing country, because they cannot go to compete with developed country in fully digital ways, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, they declare the idea about the harm of fully digital, which is gonna be impact the learn process and also will impact the student and the teacher in the end of the day to gain a goal of education itself, ladies and gentlemen. Third of all, they bring the idea on how they're gonna apply this only for the city itself, ladies and gentlemen. First, we think this is very unfair situation, which is in the end of the day it will gonna be create a more gap between rural and urban area itself, ladies and gentlemen. And we as a government, as a opposition, we cannot see which is the government side don't give us which one of priority goals that they want to achieve itself, ladies and gentlemen. Because if you as a government want to achieve a goal on how you're gonna apply this fully digital area, the government is too biased on how how to respond these cases itself, which is the goal of government itself, is gain prosperity and get this and give a same chance for the society itself, ladies and gentlemen. The purpose, jump to my argument, the purpose of education school is not only for the educational education stuff, but also on how you as a student get a chance to interact with your friends itself, and in terms of you get emotional connection between you and your friend, and also your teacher itself, ladies and gentlemen. Because in school you spend your most time in it is very beneficial way to you as a student to involve yourself, to interact with other people itself, ladies and gentlemen. As a proposition, we understand that even if there's a certain cases that you cannot go for school, but in the end of the day, we will make a counterbalance, which is we will mix the online school and then the conventional school itself, ladies and gentlemen. What is the exclusivity if we apply this mixed system itself, ladies and gentlemen? Understand on how the idea that student here in the middle of golden age era, ladies and gentlemen, they learn to recognize the environment of society around them in order to gain emotional connection itself, ladies and gentlemen. We don't want the student will be abandoned will be ignored in the end of the day to acknowledge to know about their environment itself. We don't want this process of golden era will get harmed by the fully digital learning itself, especially if somehow the student are not are already have the different static drawing in the very beginning with their other friend itself in the very first place. And then in the end of the day, it will harm the develop era of the student itself, ladies and gentlemen. Second of all, this fully digital learning will harm the purpose of education itself, ladies and gentlemen. First, on how the student with low access from the national school and cannot touch every layer of student itself. Let's go for the national school itself. National school here don't have high capacity to provide well educational stuff for online school itself, ladies and gentlemen, such as quota and well technology in the rural area or even in the urban area, which it cannot touch every layer of student in the very first place. We believe, especially for student in the rural area, it's unfair for them because they don't have the same capacity to get the same privilege in the very beginning itself, ladies and gentlemen. Second of all, go for the student itself. We believe the student. There's two layer of student, the privileged one and the second one is the unprivileged one. We believe the privileged one can get easily catch up with the fully online education itself, ladies and gentlemen. And the unprivileged one will lack of the student process itself in the end of the day, which is it will create a gap between the student itself in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. And third, I will explain to you why this fully digital system will cannot suitable in the competitive world itself. Let's take a look on how this national school want to apply the online full class itself. First, go for the teacher. Teacher in offline in conventional school is very hard to cater all the layers of the student itself because every layer is student itself. If somehow you as a government want to apply this fully online school, it's gonna be create the gap between the teacher and the student itself, ladies and gentlemen, will be more wider in the end of the day. Because in the very beginning, teachers are hard to cater every layer of the student, and in the end of the day, it's gonna be harmful in the end and there is no counterbalance between this problem. So the possibility that the wage of teacher to fail educate their student will be higher in the end of the day. And then the student in the competitive world, we acknowledge the idea that this very competitive world that there's no one can guarantee for their friends or something like that will help them in the end of the day to catch up with the online study itself, ladies and gentlemen. What kind of harm that will be happen if there is no counterbalance here? First, it will bring the idea of double burden for the student itself. Why? Because first of all, because from the very beginning, they have to provide educational stuff, which is already pricey in the end of the day. And we believe that online school classes will be already strict scheduled in the end of the day. And we believe And we believe in the end of the day, this is will be harmful for the students because the tendency of cheating and the tendency of cheating will be higher in the end of the day, and it will create them too hard to realize on how their own capacity or on their own capacity as a student itself, because the conventional school because we believe a conventional school already provides students to interact directly with their teacher and their friends itself, which is gonna be a counterbalance on how they're gonna facing this kind of problem itself. And we don't want this student to we want the student to find their own way to develop themselves itself. And go for the teacher job is not only for teaching, but also you need to motivate your student. Nothing could guarantee.
Time
There's
for the
nothing
speaker is
that
up.
guarantee. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the second speaker of opposition spent time 7 minutes 20 seconds. Now let's invite the third speaker of government, Miss Sophia. Time is yours.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes.
Hello. Okay. Let me set my time. Okay. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Before going to my argument, I'll give some rebuttal towards the opposition team. First speaker of opposition team bring the idea of how they will stick in the how they talk about not all people can access the technology. If we stick of the idea of the digital, not all people can access the technology. Just the city can access them. That is why the national school should go fully digital. Should go fully digital. We believe the government will consideration of and doing action of equalizing equality in technology field, since the national school not only in cities but also in a village, this could be one of the effort ever to improve the equality of education and technology of it especially. Okay, as my second speaker already told you, we couldn't stick in this idea. We should make a changes, make an improvement in learning system. At the end of the day, not only cities can improve in a technology system, but this generation okay in technology, but also the village can also access this technology. We believe like we expect this generation are expected to make a different or make bring such a change changes towards the society. Okay. And the second one is and the idea on how we cannot interact with people because of we should go fully digital. Okay, should go fully digital, that doesn't mean you cannot interact with your friend or other people, right? As it's go fully digital, you can study anywhere and with anyone with anyone you want. We believe the developed country may start struggling at first, but it will take time. You have to try something to make changes. Don't hang up on the word. You cannot just cities can access, but it just will make you fall into develop and doesn't make changes. Okay. I'm going to my agreement. The abrupt distortion generated by the COVID-19 pandemic has forced school to shift to online learning. For the first month, online learning has been implemented with varying levels of quality. On the other hand, this enforced learned from a home situation can also be a window of opportunity for the ministry to spearhead a new education paradigm and movement that would overcome prevailing quality and equality across Indonesia. why national school should go fully digital? As my first speaker already taught you, we have to compete. Uh, we have to compete one another. We should develop our skill in technology, as my first speaker already taught you. uh, uh, the war, uh, uh, the government will facilitate them. It's time. This is time to improve the ability of human resources, especially in a technology field, right? Okay. This already. Yep. This is also to gain awareness for the necessity of connectedness by means of technology. First thing first, during this crisis or gap technology, when the gap technology, uh, we believe that when the gap of technology issues can be resolved, this can be further of open door to jump steering the improvised the impoverished school, particularly in a remote area. Also, the storage of competent teacher in remote area can be overcome with community-based education, utilizing technology to deliver distance learning and engaging a trained local tutor. This crisis may also be an opportunity to gather the learn from home best practice and develop home school learning partnership model. Okay, and we believe if we if the national school should go fully digital, there is will no gap at the end of the day between cities and a village area. By those reason, we back to propose this motion. Thank you.
The third speaker of the government team spent time 5 minutes 6 seconds. Now let's invite the third speaker of the opposition, Muhammad Kukuh.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. The biggest mistake coming from side government is that they have failed to understand that being digital is not a parameter of how developed a certain country is, right? Really, there are other factors that determine whether or not you are developing countries or whether or not you are developed countries itself, right? Digitalization is not the only factors that contribute towards that, right? It doesn't mean that if Indonesia is full digital and then suddenly it becomes a developed country just like America, right? Those kind of things are very assumptive itself, right? With that, all the benefits coming from the government, is not exclusive under their side of the house, right? And we understand that both teams want to make sure that Indonesia will can catch up with the globalization era, right? But really, all the benefits coming from the government is not mutually exclusive. The three benefits coming from the three benefits coming from side government is first that they want to make sure that competitiveness exists, right? First, the competitiveness will still exist on either sides of the house. So with that, the idea of schools already implement the idea of competitiveness. For example, in exams, even though it is in a conventional way, the idea of competitiveness will still exist. Second benefits is on the idea of catching up with globalization or just learning technology itself, right? In the current status quo, the learning technology is already there, right? We're not learning like in the 90s itself. We already progressed towards the years, right? We already learning, for example, how to use PowerPoint or how to use Excel, right? We are forced to do that, for example, in group works itself, right? Those kind of things are still enough, right? Complicated things, for example, Excel can still be later learned on in college itself, right? Where we need those kind of things itself, right? We do that in high school or in national schools. Those kind of things are not really urgent itself because we are never forced to do that. Even if those things are very important for side of government, there are other ways. For example, in OSIS, you can learn how to create Excel because you want to create data for your event itself, right? The idea of learning new technology is still there and is still accessible at the end of the day, right? Last benefit is on the idea, students will learn more because they search more, right? The idea this idea it still exists in the country school, right? Understand that teachers never tell everything towards you, right? They always say, I'm just going to tell you this, but you need to learn other things in school throughout your books or throughout Google's, right? The idea of teachers only telling a few things towards the students so that their students can search more things is never exclusive under side government and still happening in the status quo, which makes us very painful itself. And then, so what is the exclusivity from side opposition, right? The exclusivity of side opposition is the idea of interaction itself, right? Understand the purpose of education is not only for us to make a better human resources, but also interaction itself, right? Understand that humans are social beings itself, right? Especially in a capitalistic world where you are always competing, right? It is very unlikely for people to help you itself other than your friends, right? That is why we need to make sure that we have friends by interacting itself, right? The idea of having friends is very unlikely under side opposition, under side government, because understand that there are no incentive for the students to actually study with other people itself, right? Compare that to outside the house. For example, in lunch break, we have the incentive, for example, to hang out with our friends because we have nothing to do itself, right? And also understand that if you go full digital, though, for example, go in lunch break, there's no such thing as lunch break itself, right? Understand, for example, in class, that only happens in digital, that only happens in digital stuff. The idea of interacting with your friends does not exist because your movement is limited by the teachers in class itself, right? The only way for you to interact with your friends is in the small times, for example, in lunch break and etc. itself, right? We believe the interaction is so important in this capitalistic world, especially in the work fields where we acknowledge that schools make sure that we are prepared for the work field itself, right? Where we are always asked, can you actually work together, right? The main content, the main factor that makes us go to that have work or not is that whether or not can we actually interact with others, or whether or not can we actually work well with others itself, right? Because the idea of digitalization itself is backlashing the idea of the interaction with others itself, right? Because they didn't give the children any time to actually interact with others, because all they do is, for example, only online classes, right? There are no, for example, lunch break that force you to interact with your friends and etc. itself, right? And towards my second argument, it's why it will be very hard. Why is it very effective to actually go for digital? Right? We already told you from the very beginning that before government trying to implement digitalization is that they need to make sure that everybody have the abilities for you to buy the phone itself. Right? It is the same thing as you are telling someone to go racing with a car without giving them a car itself. Right? It doesn't mean that they have a car itself. Right? First, government needs to make sure that all of their people have the abilities to, for example, to have the phones, to have the quota itself, right? Understand that there are other people that are unprivileged, that don't have the abilities to buy this kind of things, that even they cannot, they are very hard for them to get their food money itself, right? And especially talking about the teachers itself, right? Understand that most of these teachers are old itself, and they are very gupted and even doesn't know how to operate Zoom itself, right? We feel that it's very unnecessary for us to giving a more burden towards these teachers itself, right? Understand the reason why Indonesia in the education is very lacking is because the lack of competency of these teachers itself, right? Forcing these teachers not only to be competent and not only to be competent in teaching, but also competent in mastering the technology is only giving a double burden towards these teachers itself, right? We see no clear benefit. All the benefits on doing. We see all the benefits coming from side opposition on this conference is not enough to justify on us to actually giving double burden towards these teachers, where they are already from the very beginning is burden to actually cater or layers of their class itself, right? And even if they say, oh, we're just going to talk, we're going to take, right? We're going to take time. With that, by taking time, especially in this capitalistic world, is only just giving a head start towards other countries itself, right? We believe that the moment we actually slow down and just try to transition is the moment we are being overlapped by the other countries itself, right? Making us not actually able to be developed itself because we are just too busy transitioning towards the digitalization itself without even having a clear benefit on it itself, right? And then lastly, let's talk about the environment itself, right? A very random point coming from government. So with the first government, the education is not the main contributors towards the environment itself, and second, with that, it is not the main purpose of education to actually make sure that they use less rubbish. But why don't we just, like, for example,
For your
the
speaking
students
is
to
up.
stop? Yeah, and thank you.
Okay, the third speaker spent time 7 minutes 25 seconds. Now let's invite the reply speaker from the opposition team, Ms. Zahra.
Am I audible?
Yes.
I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, let's analyze the argument of the government, right? First, they talk about how it's actually using digital fully learning. It's actually going to improve their technology and how they can, in the end of the day, going to compete with other countries, right? We already told you that. They never actually told us about to which extent you want to compete, because it's obviously are different, because we're actually developing countries with totally different starting point, and trying to be in the same stage with other countries who are obviously more developed than us is actually really unrealistic. And they also neglect to our status quo now. They don't give us any solution and counterbalance until the end of the day, that we already told you the fact that there are still lots of people or poor people that don't have the accessibility of technology. The government say that, oh, the government already give the funding for this technology, but my question to the government is that if our country that you picturize is that perfect, is that enough, then why we are still considered as a developing country, and why we still have lower income, then why lower income, then why there are still lots of people who struggling with money, if that is the world that you picturize. And also, we think that it's too early to implement the government model, because the fact that in the status quo that people still struggle with money, how it's actually not justified with the village world and etc. They also mentioned it by themselves about how technology is still low in current status quo and they want to develop it. But our question is, then how you gonna develop, you gonna provide a huge amount of technology in a very short time, so suddenly, if our technology is not really developed in the end of the day. Right now, we're not talking about whether or not technology exists or not. We're talking about whether or not this model is accessible and effective or not. And we already told you in the first place that this is not accessible to all layers of society. They're talking about, the second speaker talking about how they want to give national school to the cities, right? But when my second already rebut that by saying that, oh, it's really biased choice of the government. It's really unfair, and it's only going to worsening the gap between the poor and the city. We think that the advantage that comes from the government is only the advantage that gonna probably happen for the people in cities, which is not the goal of the government. As the government, we need to make sure that all of our layers of society have the same rights. If you say that you want to prioritize national school in city, it means that they are the only one who are going to be progressing. Even though the government job is how to give the same chance for people, for all layers, in order to compete in this competitive world in job field, which is the reason of the existence of education in the first place, the reason of existence of the school in the first place, in order to make sure and prepare these people in the job field, in the competitive world, in a same equal of value. And also, they talk about how technology is really our concern. We need to actually develop our people and etc. But we already told you that technology is already exists in the first place. Even we already told you that we don't neglect globalism. Even we already told you that how we're gonna mix between system, which is digital system, and conventional system, if it's actually needed or urgent, right? But the problem that we are concerning is how the system is actually not accessible and also not progressive for our people. And we already told you that in conventional system, progress is still gonna happen. We think that school is not only a place to learn, but also a place to motivate yourself, right? We think that we have a more advantage than the government, because first, we already proved to you that how competitiveness is still gonna exist in our side. And we already prove to you how we already trying to fulfill the goal of the government itself, which is giving same welfare and also same chances, and how we're already trying to fulfill the goals of the education itself, which is to give a proper chances for our people and students to study. Thank you.
The reply speaker spent time 4 minutes 9 seconds. Now let's invite the reply speaker from the government team, Miss Ayu.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Is the replay speaker 4 minutes?
Yes, it's 4 minutes for replay speaker.
Okay. I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Educator, I think opposition team get confused at very first beginning. They thought that we will ignore the other school in Indonesia itself, but they don't understand on how our model will work, right? We said that it will be slowly but sure. You cannot change just for one day, right? So let's be honest on how even in their side of the house, even when they want to stick in the status quo, the gap between the school in village in city will be still there. Let's take an example on how SMA 1 Mataram, for example, is upper hand than any other SMA in village in Lombok, for example. It shows to you on how it takes time to make a changes, right? So it takes time for us to take an action, right? So we say that at the very first beginning, opposition team failed to understand our model itself. They ignored the fact that we already explained to you on how it will be work. Slowly but surely itself, ladies and gentlemen, it shows to you on how opposition team clearly prove to you on how they want to stick in the status quo, which is they don't want our education system become developed, right? Because they still want to use paper or conventional stuff in school and etc and etc. We say that even in your school you have PC and etc, but the school in village they don't have that, so the social gap in your cerebral will be still there, right? So it's not only in our cerebral house. At least in our cerebral house we are trying to make development towards our education system, even it's slowly but sure, but we are trying to do that rather than only stick in status quo, which is you already understand it wouldn't work for your education system. Because of why? Because we're a big country, right? It's impossible to follow your model to be in one day to change the education system. We need time for that. So we say that it is really possible for us to upper hand than opposition team, because we already told you step by step analysis, and they were lacking to understand our model itself, ladies and gentlemen. Also, they are trying to dramatize on how children cannot play and stuff. But my third speaker already explained on how you still have time for your family, and it doesn't mean you can 24 hours in front of your gadget and etc. You still have time for eating, take a bath, for example, or reading your favorite novel, or watching your favorite Korean drama, for example. And also, at the very first beginning, they already stated to you on how they want to stick in the status quo, which is they want to our teacher still get tech or um, technology backward, for example, on how they don't want to they don't want to improve our teacher. For example, in our house, we want to force our student and teacher to be great, or to be able to operate PC, for example. In their servant house, they only want to stick in status quo, which students, our teacher, are gaptech, for example. So it is really bad for our next generation. It's really bad for the development of our education system, right? So if you want to be better in education system, you should you should give more credit in our server house, because we don't want to keep our student and teacher to be gaptech, but in their server house they are trying to make our students and teacher to be gaptech by saying that we still want to stick in status quo without any further thing or action to do to change our students and to change our teacher to be better to operate the electronic device. But in our server house we win this debate.
Thank you. The reply speaker from the government team spent time 4 minutes. By this means that our debate today is over, but you have to wait in this room for me to submit your scores and decide the winning team. I'll come back later to announce the winning team. Stay here, okay? Thank you. Okay, debaters, are you still there? Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I have submitted the your scores and I have decided the winning team. We debate under the motion. This House believe that national schools should go fully digital. So the debate will talk about whether this national school usefully digital and the teacher conduct the education using only digital gadget, such as what we do during this pandemic. We use Zoom and something like that. So first I will announce the winning team. The winning team is the opposition and is under the margin 6 points. It is actually the tag debate, so I took some time to consider. At the end I consider the opposition team as the winning team. Congratulations. Here I have some notes why they're winning. The opposition team always stands on their points. They have a strong point in believing that digitalization is not an option for the national school in Indonesia. And for the government team, start with the first speaker telling us the definition of the motion, which is a little bit misleading, unfortunately. He said that what is the fully digital national school? He said schools should implement and put the data in digital form, and the data is instead of on paper. It is really strict definition. You should go with the actual definition, the actual strict definition of the motion, that the school should fully do the teaching and learning in home using a digital gadget, right? But the other speaker, the second and the third speaker of the government team don't really follow that definition, so that that doesn't really impact your team's performance in your status school. And what makes the opposition as the winning team is that they brought several points, which is the limited accessibility of the technology and the different economic background of some area or students, and the benefit of the more beneficial the face-to-face learning rather than the online learning or the digital learning. Government teams try to attack their point by saying that we have to make changes, we have to prepare our young generation to be able to compete in the globalization on modern era. But they also stated that there is a gap between the rural and the city, and they said they want to start with the city, which is for the opposition they said that it will increase the gap that we're talking about here. So actually the government team brought up the good point. I think it's about the environment, but they never fully explain it, which is so unfortunate. It can be a good point because the opposition really think that that point is not really good, but they fail to explain that, so that the credit is not really high for the government for that point. And opposition attacks so many of their points, saying that this digital school idea is not the only thing that the only thing as an aspect for the Indonesian education to develop. And they say that they say that it's not really fair for the rural area, and the government only stated and simply stated with no logical explanation or step that the government will make it equal, the government will make a training, and the opposition said that they attacked them by saying that it is really worth it to take so much time and so much time to develop the technology that we want, and our children or students just kind of like wait, something like that. Okay, that's all. Maybe the general view of the debate. Thank you for making this so far, and congratulations for the winning team, and for the team, for the government team. Please keep spirit because we have 2 more prelims. And for the further feedback, you can reach me out via WhatsApp. Thank you.
Thank you, Kak.
Thank you.